All right. Jacob Krogue, thank you for coming on the podcast today, the
Anytime.
AI Revolution podcast. Um, to start us off, just give us a little introduction of yourself and explain kind of what got you into AI and why you, just why you've gotten interested in it.
Yeah, I think it started, I mean, I've been interested in it for a long time. So I'm an accountant by, profession, a CPA. And so in college, in school, we had a data analytics class, and a big part of it was, we learned how to write macros in Excel. Um, we started learning like robotic process automation, RPA,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of blew my mind. Like, we would write these things that would do these tasks for us, whether that's, go out to the web and scrape this website and then look for this information, or use this ticker and go pull all the company data, their stock price, blah, 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 everything. And you could just hit a button and it would do it for you. And I remember just being blown away. So really, since then, I've been interested. I would say I'm a hobbyist. I would not say I'm in the weeds. I'm not building an AI tool right now, unlike the people we've interviewed and you. I am, and I don't know if I necessarily will ever build an AI tool. Maybe I will. Who knows? But I'd say I am just really enjoying seeing the revolution and using the tools and applying the tools to different use cases, and maybe kind of exploring different realms with the tools that are coming out.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've really that has driven my interest as well. It's just the variety of tools out there, and how much of it all kind of seemed to explode all at the same time, right? Where it's like, within a year or so, we got really good image generation, really good text generation, like all at once.
Yeah, seriously.
And yeah, it blows my mind how much has been unlocked and will continue to be unlocked further for us.
Yeah. Truly.
So what is like kind of like your excuse me. So you mentioned you're an accountant. What are some of the impacts of automation and increased automation that you've seen on your work as an accountant?
I mean, it goes from everything from, the actual work we do, which is, I work for a big four accounting firm, and they're all doing it. So I can kind of speak for all the big four. They're all adopting, they're trying to adopt and develop these AI tools to increase effectiveness. The trend up until now, which is still going on, right, in the accounting industry, is like offshoring work. So the idea was, let's take the in the weeds, nitty gritty, repetitive tasks that we've had to do in the past. Like, they call it footing, right, in accounting, where you're like, you have the financial statements and you add up every single row to make sure it adds up to the total. And it's just work like that you just have to make sure everything's accurate. And so now we have a team in India that we send it to. And this was a big trend. Everyone was doing this, getting these big centers in India or Asia, different areas, which is still going on. But AI is doing a lot of that stuff now. And it's an interesting spot right now for the accounting industry, because it's still so, like, people rely on this audit opinion, and so people are very nervous to have AI, and they want a lot of humans looking over it, human oversight. But it's impacted, and it is impacting more and more as they're like iterating through these different tools, where we are no longer writing rough drafts of memos anymore. Like, that's not a thing. Like, we have a tool that we use, and we say, hey, write me a memo for this issuance of preferred stock, and help illustrate like the basic accounting risks that come about because of this preferred stock. And it'll like write it all up, pull in accounting guidance, and do it. And then we obviously have to go through and make sure that it like applies to the actual company.
Yeah.
And
that's really interesting.
Right now it's a lot more writing memos and stuff like that, but it's going to be more.
Yeah. So see, I guess that makes sense to me, but also it comes as a surprise to me a little bit as well. I would have thought that there's more of an imperative to automate some of the more accounting specific tasks, but I guess. So do you think like what they found was that people were spending a lot of time writing memos and they would rather spend that brain power on accounting tasks? Or do you have any insight as far as that goes?
I think they're still just nervous to say this was done by AI. Whereas a memo, it's like, it's very subjective and you're just kind of like documenting risk, and a human's definitely going to look over a memo and make sure it like applies to the company.
Yeah.
And I think currently there's still just this like fear of AI where I think eventually, and when it happens, I think it's going to be quick. I think it's going to be a very fast switch for the whole accounting industry. That
like at some point they're just going to be like, okay, we're in, going
like
all
flip
in.
the switch, and people are like all of a sudden, and it's like AI has to hit this critical mass, I think, where like enough people are like okay with it, and then it'll be like a light switch, and like like the auditing industry that I'm in will be like completely changed, I think. And be a lot more enjoyable for humans, I think.
A lot less of the grunt work, more of like the interesting problem solving aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are kind of some of the use cases that you've been interested in personally, aside from being interested in like, you know, how can this make my job more enjoyable and less mind numbing? What are some of the fun uses that you've explored? Because I think those are important as well, where I think that people kind of overlook the value of play. That's going to sound almost a little bit pretentious of me to say, but I think you know what I mean, where like the toy aspects of AI are also very interesting. Anyways, long way of asking, what other things have you done with it?
Well, I mean, like, it's, people downplay just like the role of imagination in playing, you know, like, what's the saying? Like all good ideas happen in the shower when you're just like thinking by yourself, daydreaming. It's like, that's where good ideas come, and that's where everything happens, is just that ideation. It's been like all over the map. Like I've just like used it to like give me ideas for date nights for like me and my wife. Like, what are good date nights around, you know, wherever we live or wherever we're going. It also is fun. Like just a few weeks ago, I was like, I love history, and I feel like I have lost a lot of historic knowledge since I've been out of school and all this stuff, and I was getting really sad about it.
For auditing companies.
Right. No one's like, hey, tell me about, you know, the 300 facing Persia, and I'm like, oh, great, this applies to the audit. So I was like, I'm just gonna start an Instagram page. Here, let me share my screen. I'll show you
pull it
the
up.
exact process I did. Let's see.
See, I think that this is something that people can overlook, is that AI is amazing for just exploring things and having fun.
So I just Googled. I was just like, it was like one night, and I was like, I'm just gonna post something like once a week. And it honestly, it's like also for me to just like get these historic stories like fresh in my mind. So I was like, okay, Google image generation, and this one popped up. It was like towards the top of the list, hotpot.ai. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't even know who built this, but whoever you are, come on our show. And it's already gone through like several iterations. Like the user interface is a lot better now. Anyway, so I was like, sweet, let me come over here to the art generator just for fun. Let's say I just did like a week or two ago, I mentioned 300, you know, the Spartans. Draw an image of 300 Spartans facing an army of Persians, or you spell Persians in front of a canyon, which is kind of what happened. Let's see, there we go, Persians. And then we'll just go create. It's free. And then while that's going, if you do it for free, then it takes 30 seconds. If you pay it, it's faster. And then there we go. See?
Ooh,
so
nice.
Here they are, getting ready to face off in front of this canyon, facing the Persians. And then I was like, okay. And then let me come over to Google's Bard and say,
Gemini
tell me this. Yeah, I know, right? so old school. Tell me the story of the 300 Spartans defending the pass against the Persian army in 150 words. Then gives me a little blurb, summarizes it all. Gemini, aka Bard, aka now Gemini, is kind of fun because it will often do it in like a much more story format, whereas I've noticed like ChatGPT, when I give it the same prompt, will give me just like the facts. It'll be like, here's 150 words of like facts of it, whereas Gemini kind of like tells me it in a story, which is fun.
And then ChatGPT also really likes its bullet points. It loves bullet points.
So many bullet points. Whereas like Gemini, right? It's like this story, this paragraph.
Yeah.
And it's like, it still has facts, right? 480 BC, 300 Spartans, King Leonidas, which is all true. Thermopylae, that's the pass they defended.
Also true.
Anyway, it's the phalanx formation. It's pretty sweet. And so I was like, oh, cool. This is fun. Let me create this Instagram page called historicstory.ai. It just started nice and fresh. So I kind of decided I would have the story at the top.
Yeah.
And then kind of have more like bullet points of like the hard facts, right?
Yeah, hitting like the specifics, like the date,
and then like the
numbers and all that
on history. Like, why is this still in our history books?
Yeah.
So I just created these 2 images. Pretty sweet,
I like that.
And got 29 followers in a few weeks.
Not bad.
I did this is like the I have a dream speech.
Yeah.
Just kind of cool. And honestly, it's just fun. Like,
yeah.
I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. Anyway, it's just fun, like, it's kind of this passion I have, history, and AI is just making it like I don't have to go read a Wikipedia page. I just say, tell me the story, 150 words, give me the facts in 5 bullet points, and create a cool image. And it's
super nice because it's like you can do all of that in just minutes.
Yeah, like that post, which is like pretty good, has the facts, cool image, in like a minute. It's so quick.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And like if you read through it and you're like, hey, I don't like this, at least it gives you a place to start.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've really loved about AI is that I can have it for me generate code, right? Like that's by far my most common use case. And in 30 seconds I can have code that I can look at and I can tell you if it's going to do what I want it to do or not, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I have to run the code to find out for sure, but most of the time, like I can look at it like, oh, hey, like this fits what I need it to do. And it blows my mind because in the cases where it doesn't quite fit, it's close enough that I don't have to do that much tweaking to get it there. So we've had this podcast for a little while now. This is a question that I thought I was wanting to ask. What has been kind of the most what's been the most interesting takeaway that you've or conclusion that you've reached as a result of doing the podcast?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's high level AI is changing the world. Like one big takeaway is like it's changing the world whether you like it or not. And it's like the cat's out of the bag, you're not catching it again. And get on board and just like don't get left behind, you know? Like I'm not building a tool. I'm not coding, but I'm involved and I'm current and I know what's going on and I'm using tools and allowing it to like enhance my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's every single founder, I think, even like you all the way to like our first episode with Yassine, like everybody is saying the same thing. Like when we ask them their advice, it's just like, just use it. Like just try it out. And like, just think of something like I did, like, oh, I like history. I want to like refresh these historic stories. And then just be like, I bet AI could help me with that. What would that look like? And that's all, that's like the biggest thing with AI is it just like allows you to, like, I'm busy. I have work. I have a life. But because it's so fast, it allows me to like also have this, like, indulge my hobby of history.
Yeah.
It just like, I kind of said this on a post on X, not Twitter. It's not Bard, it's Gemini. All these rebrandings.
It's too much.
It's
too much.
It's getting outrageous. But I just said like AI plus human equals superhuman because it really does. Like you think about what a superhero is, right? It's like a human with like superpowers, super abilities. And truly, I'm not just saying this, like that's what AI can do. Like it truly does.
No, exactly. And it's like it's, you know, it's not a super intelligence by any stretch of imagination, but it is superhuman in so many ways right now. Obviously, like everybody's seeing the ways in which AI falls short, right? Like you know, you see like the funny chat transcripts and whatnot, and like the funky hands in the images, but also like, you know, show me a human alive who can create a near photorealistic painting in under 30 seconds.
Right?
Right? Like yes, there are many shortcomings that AI has, and it's important to be aware of them for just partially because, you know, you don't want to look like a rube. And partially because it enables you to use the tools better. But I think that there are many people who let the shortcomings of AI kind of blur out the good stuff and ignore how incredible of a technology it really is already, and it's going to keep getting better. And even if it doesn't get all that much better, like what we have right now is already incredible and has a ton of use cases. So I asked about like kind of the most interesting. What's been like the most unexpected thing about talking to AI founders? Has there been anything that has surprised you?
Yeah, I think I've been surprised. Just let me think. That's a good question. I think it's been surprising how in line everybody is with, like, everybody who's using AI loves it.
Yeah.
Like everyone we've talked to is so passionate and is, you know, team AI all the way. And I truly think it's like infectious. Like as soon as you start like delving into it, like as soon as you put your toe in the water or like you put your face like up to the window and you get a glimpse, it's like you can't look away. It's just like, what else could we do with this? Like how could this change my life? Like I was just talking to a guy who developed a trip planning tool based on AI, and you can say, you know, tell me I'm going here, create an 8-day itinerary with food, with everything, and you can put in whatever, you know, clarifications you want and it'll plan it. It's just like talking to him, I was like, oh my, like it just touches everything. It can do so much. And it's been surprising to me that nobody we've talked to, and obviously we're talking to people who are building tools, things like that, so I'm sure they're a little biased, of course, but like everybody we've talked to that is using AI loves it.
that's what's has stood out to me as well, is like, because I've been adjacent to or in the startup space for a while, and usually even within within a particular space in an industry, there's even among the people who are building companies in that space, there's some variety of opinions, and it's been, and this is going to make it sound like it's like culty, but that's not what I mean at all. But within the AI space, like, it's been pretty universal enthusiasm, which in my experience is rare. Like, almost always there's somebody's like, they're building a company in a particular space, but they're not that enthusiastic about the space for X, Y, or Z reason, right? But like, they're building a company because it's a good opportunity, right? Everybody that I've talked to building a company in AI is doing it because they're incredibly excited about the new technology.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring to me that way. Because right. I worked in fintech for a little while, and I left with some, I left much more cynical about venture capital and about fintech in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so far with AI, like, it's been, again, like, there are problems that come along with it. Anytime there's a new technology, there's problems, but the potential so far outweighs any of the problems so far.
Right. Yeah, without a doubt. And you think about, like, the early computers, right? You think of Steve Jobs building computers in a garage.
Yeah.
And like and just the passion there. Like, I think we just have to open up ourselves and like learn from the past, like, let's just look back at all great innovations, and there's always this learning curve, but amazing things always come afterwards. It's like everyone's scared. Like, it's just so funny. Like, you look back at history, and like every single time, whatever it is, the Model T, the internet, the cell phone, the train, like, I'm sure the wheel was freaking people out when that was invented.
It's like, no, dude, rocks should not move like that,
rolls.
man.
It just freaking rolls.
What are the consequences of attaching axles to wheels, guys? Let's think about this.
Let's just, like,
are we going to develop
open up yourself
as well? Come on.
Yeah, come on now. Just dream big. But seriously, learn from the past and just embrace it. Get on board, because it'll change your life. That's what I think.
Yeah, I feel very, I mean, obviously I'm doing this podcast with you, but I feel very similarly, where it's inspired me to go back to school, because I'm like, this stuff is so cool. I need to go learn and relearn the math that I need to know to be able to work with this stuff at a deeper level, because it's a generational technology, and those don't come around that often. And I think that the people who are currently AI naysayers will be very happy to be wrong. is my prediction.
Yeah.
Speaking about AI naysayers, I'm curious if there are any concerns that have arisen for you with regards to AI that you didn't have prior to doing the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm a little nervous about, like, copyright law and where that's going to go. I think it's going to be very very tricky to, like, I don't know, rein in AI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also nervous about, I don't know if you saw in the news, like, all of this with, like, the deep fake images of, like, Taylor Swift, and I just think I'm scared of, like, people believe what they see a lot, and we shouldn't. And it's terrifying, the effect that can have. Like, I'm sure people thought Taylor Swift was in the Kansas City Chiefs locker room getting her head massaged by the whole team. Like I'm sure people saw that and they were like, this is real. Like that's, oh my gosh. And that's just like a super, whatever example, but like it is terrifying.
Yeah.
The capabilities of AI, both for good and bad, just like every technology, like the internet, it enabled terrible things, but it also enabled, world changing developments as well. And so I don't know what it's going to look like, regulations, the regulatory environment, policies. Countries are like grappling with it right now, but there is going to be a transition phase, which I totally get what people are saying. Like it is very scary because it can create images that look real. It can create, essays that sound real and sound like they're based on real knowledge. And we'll just have to figure out. The answer is not to just try to shut it in a box, though, again. But we do have to grapple with it. It's scary. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's one where I go back and forth on, where it's obviously it's not a usage of AI that I support at all. But also it's like, I don't know how you regulate it at the same time. And I'm sure that there are people who are much smarter than me on these topics that are working on this very problem. But it's like, where do you draw the line between a legitimate act of parody or satire or what have you, and like the Taylor Swift example you brought up, like that very clearly crosses several dozen lines.
Right.
And so where I go back and forth on is like, like our current system and policies that have existed for stuff like this is probably going to be sufficient. Like, we've dealt with faked images for a long time. We have strategies for dealing with them, both in a legal sense and in like a social sense. But at the same time, like you said, like it can create images that, to a lot of people who are, like you said, a lot of people tend not to be particularly critical of the content that they take in online, and don't stop and think about whether or not it might be fake in one way or another. Right. And so the thing that worries me there is like the scale at which we can generate those images now, right?
Yeah. It's like the difference between like a garden hose and like a waterfall. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Because it's like
crazy.
In the past, similar things would happen, but it would be like, like it's this specific image, and roughly to look out for it, right? Like as an example, like the picture that people pass around online of like Obama and Trump kissing, like it's very obviously fake.
Yeah.
But part of how we know it's obviously fake is because it's kind of singular and iconic, like it's that it's that Photoshop, right? And so that is one concern that I share, where it's like, what happens with image generation, and how do we deal with the negative effects downstream of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Weirdly enough, I'm not as worried about text generation there, because people will bring up like, you can generate so much misinformation now. It's like, yeah, but like the rate at which people can take in misinformation hasn't changed.
That's true. That's a good point.
And it's already a pretty saturated market.
Like you can only, and ideally you've set up your channels of knowledge too, right? Like subscribe to certain newsletters, you read certain news outlets, news sources, your social media, you can kind of try, to tailor and build so that you have reliable sources.
And I think that one change that we're going to have to make in the world is, I think that critical thinking needs a much higher emphasis in education.
Yeah.
Like we need
how awesome, right? Like, yeah,
exactly. Like this is a good thing. Some of the effects of why I think this are not so great. Like again, going back to the Taylor Swift example, like stuff like that is not good, very obviously. But if we can increase the average critical thinking skill of the average American, I'm very happy, because it was needed already, and maybe this shoves us in that direction.
Right.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
So you're not building with these tools. You're not super deep in the industry. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. Where do you see AI going in 5 to 10 years? Like, what is its impact on work? What is its impact on our personal lives?
I think it'll be, I think it'll change a lot, but I think it'll change things in the sense of like, you will no longer, like, I don't know if necessarily a regular search engine, like a Google, where you just like are searching something like that, I don't know if that will be as common, because you can just have so much more of a comprehensive approach with like an LLM. But I think life will just be easier but harder, like our capabilities will be so much more far reaching. Like, if you want to have an impact, you can have a bigger impact. I think it'll touch every industry. I know, like, I've heard so many, like, even I brought up the idea earlier of like these outsourced accounting teams, right? A big concern when that was going on was like, when that was starting, was like, oh, but like our interns, our associates, are they going to learn these like this basic knowledge if like we're shipping it off to these outsourced teams? And it's like, yeah, guess what? They still have to know it, because they're reviewing it, and then like there's problems in all of it, and you have to be able to analyze it. So like, one way or another, you're going to have to figure out what's going on. It's just, you don't have to do the grunt work to get there. So I'm not very concerned about like critical thinking or like knowing how to do things, because I think it's going to touch everything, but we'll still have to use our brains. I personally don't think it'll ever like replace a human's brain. I just don't think it will.
No, I agree. I think that we're going to end up finding use cases where it's like, oh, like, we will only have AI do this. Like, I brought this up previously on the podcast, but for example, like space travel, if we get to the point where, deep space travel beyond the solar system is possible, like, why would we waste valuable human lives when we can just stick a couple robots on there and ship them out?
Seriously. See you later. You don't need food. You don't need water. Like, see you in 100 years.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
We'll send you messages every now and then. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, seriously. And that's like how I view it. Is like, it's not, there's this fear, right, that it's like a replacement, that it's like, I mean, non-artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence, and we're going to like hash it out, But like, I
Terminator style.
Yeah, exactly. But like, what I view it as is like, it doesn't replace each other. It's like a symbiotic relationship where like both give and take, and will both grow exponentially.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because humanity is too valuable. And as much as I am an AI optimist, I still remain skeptical that you can kind of recreate 100% the value of humanity within an artificial system. I think that there's, to some degree, the embodiment of being human shapes our cognition in ways that I don't think that we recognize. There's all sorts of studies coming out now that are showing that we do a lot more thinking with our neural extremities, rather than like our core cortex than we realize. It's all still being processed up here, but like there's a lot more cognition happening in the body than we've realized previously, which I think is fascinating. If you could tell people just one thing about AI, like you have to create a value pitch for AI, and you have to narrow it down to just a sentence. What would be your answer?
I like one sentence elevator pitch.
Yeah, perfect. Elevator pitch. That's the term I was looking for.
Here it is. Ready? This will be the. This can go in like neon letters. Allow AI to make your dreams come true.
Yeah, I like it.
Truly, it can do that. Like, if you want to learn a new skill, it can help you do that. It can help enable your dreams to come true. So put it up, neon letters, Times Square.
I'm paying for it right now. I got my guy on the phone.
Seriously.
Big picture of your face, and it just says, "Let AI make your dreams come true."
Yeah, exactly. No doubt.